and a very good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mehta and the team IPF. Now, without further ado, let us eagerly listen to the vision, insightful thoughts, ideas, strategy, vision, and the guidance that Mr. Minister has graciously willing to share with us.
My senior colleague, Secretary Damu Ravi, High Commissioner Balasubramaniam ji, Consul General Chandramouli ji, my brothers and sisters living in Nigeria and distinguished. Normally, when I have a chance to interact with our community, I say two things, I discuss two things. I tell them, you know, I've been here on a visit, these are the things that I did, so that they also have a good sense what is happening in the relationship. But today you are the beginning of my visit, so I can't do that. I can speak to you about the relationship, how well it is doing, how much all of you have done for it. So, first of all, I would like to begin by thanking you. I was here, from then this much has changed. Now, the problem was, it's my first visit. And I'm actually, I was very amazed today to learn from the High Commissioner that this was the first visit by a foreign minister. So I must say it has taken me some time, but I will try to make up for it in many ways. So I asked myself, okay, since I can't say how my visit went, I can't say what has changed since my last visit, what should I say which will be of most interest to all of you? Now, I think you all know for many years I was myself a diplomat. I served in 8 countries. And in 41 years that I spent in diplomacy, about 27, 28 years I spent abroad. Now, why I'm saying this to you is, I know what it is like to live abroad and keep thinking about my country. And that is the connection, that is the common point with all of you today that I would like to speak about. And I know that every Indian who lives abroad, whatever their passport, however long they have lived abroad, one part of them is always in India, one part of them is always thinking about India, following India, worrying about India, happy about India. And so I thought, today let me just share a few thoughts, because I don't want to give you a lecture. I want this to be a conversation, because when there is a conversation, I also have something to learn from all of you. So let me talk to you a little bit what has changed really in India. Now, if I speak about change in India, I can keep you here till tomorrow evening, easily. So I thought, let me pick just 4 or 5 points, you know, different things in different aspects of life, so that it will give you a feel. Because some of you would go to India more regularly, some of you would have your own compulsions. So I would say today, if I were to give you the first example, it is actually how not only India has dealt with COVID, but come out of COVID. And why I picked that is, I travel a lot, really a lot. In a typical year, I don't know, I do how many trips? 30, 40, 50 trips? And I have a chance to look at the rest of the world, to see, you know, this is something, this terrible thing which happened to all of us once in 100-year happening. How have other countries, other people, other communities dealt with it? And I can tell you that I take great heart, great hope, great faith from how India dealt with it. And I'll tell you why. When COVID started, when the world first discovered that COVID had started, we are talking early 2020. There was actually a virtual gathering, because already by that time people were a little bit nervous about traveling, and big leaders felt more comfortable talking to each other on the screen. And we put together this meeting actually of the G20 leaders and other people. And Prime Minister Modi obviously spoke for India. I was sitting behind him. And it was very interesting. After all the leaders of the world discussed, ye ho sakta hai, wo ho sakta hai, this is going to be terrible, we don't know what is coming for us. Last time we had something like this was 100 years ago. Affected, which would be most unable to cope with COVID, would be India. This was and it was not said in a bad way. It was actually genuinely a belief in the world that a country whose health system was not mature, many people did not have the access to even basic facilities. When they were going to have to deal with this, how will they find the mask? वो कहाँ से PPE लाएंगे? Ventilator का तो नाम निशान नहीं था उस समय देश में. And at that time, nobody was even talking vaccines. They were just talking survival. That this tufan is coming, with who will survive the tufan and who will not survive this tufan. And the deep worry was that we would be among those who would be most affected. 2 years later, I saw as one of a small group of ministers who had been given the responsibility by Prime Minister to every day monitor COVID and to respond to it. That we went through the COVID wave, we went through the lockdowns of places to deal with COVID patients, isolation places. We started making vaccines and medicines for the rest of the world to look at. Why ability? We have creativity. We have that ability to rise to the challenge. And it took the biggest challenge of 100 years to bring this out in the country. And not just bring it out. When I look at country after the COVID, who has recovered, who has not? And you people know it. You have seen, you see it in your own travels, where you live, where you go. Many countries today, many societies, even today, have not come out of the... Now, COVID is one example. I'll give you a very different example. Today, what is happening in the economy? Now, one way of saying it is very simple. You would say we are the fastest growing big economy in the world. So all of you will clap, right? Right? But I want to say it is much more than that. Today, if you see the economic activity in India, you see, any of you who have been to India in the last 2 or 3 years, wherever you go in India, something is being built. A metro is being built, a road is being built, new airports are coming up, new trains are coming up, railway stations are coming up. If you go to your village, you will see piped water coming up, this electricity connection coming up. Everywhere, there is a sense today that India is being built at a fantastic pace. Not just being built. It is that growth rate we speak about actually covers many other things. Today, you can see the flow of investments into India, the highest ever. You can actually see in very critical areas, companies, multinational companies, because many of you do business, some of you work for multinational companies. Look at the business sentiment about India. And most of all, again, I want to say, for me, the real change is the change I see in our own people. I travel a lot in India. This is what ministers do. Even foreign ministers do. You know, one very interesting change I observed, it took me 4 or 5 occasions to understand it. Whenever I would go to a university, vice chancellor, or they will bring out the best students, saying, sir, ye gold medalist hai, silver medalist hai, best student did. Today I see something very different. People say, look, please talk to the students, meet the faculty, but please spare 1 hour. We want to show you what our students have done. We want to show you an exhibition. We want you to meet students who actually have patents. We have students who have done startups. So when we talk today of economic changes in India, it isn't only big factories, it isn't only foreign companies or big domestic companies or even infrastructure. It is a very, very deep change. A change where, I'm giving you a very interesting example. Last month, many of us went out to small towns or cities or even villages to see how young people in village, of mostly actually girls, are using drones today for agricultural purposes. And many of them actually, people put fertilizer on the field. Now they use something called nano fertilizer, and they use very, very small quantities of it. It's a very small particle. It penetrates very deeply into the soil, so you have to use much less of it. It is much better for the health of the soil. Today, when we speak about economic activity, we are actually speaking that drones are being deployed, infrastructure is being built. We have today, there was a time when we used to look for telecom technology. आप लोगों को याद होगा 2G, 3G याद होगा. Today 5G, we are deploying Indian 5G stack at the fastest rate which any country is doing in terms of 5G deployment. So I want to present to you, so one, how we dealt with the COVID storm, how we have come out of it. 2, today, how the economy is doing. And what is the sense that economy is not just business people. Today, actually, in many ways, people have joined with it. The third is actually the life of the average citizen. That, many of you live here today. Some of you would have come more recently. Some of you would be longer. But even those who have been here for a long time, some part of your family and friends would be there. All of us have struggled with, one of the things I used to hear for many, many decades is, हाँ वो बाहर जाके ना छोटी मोटी चीज़ों पे वो तंग नहीं करते आपको. You'd get your services without any problems. That's what people used to say. Somehow our feeling was that used to happen outside India. It cannot happen within India. Today it is the life of the average citizen that has actually changed the most. Average citizen changes their belief in the country, in the government, in the leadership, in the vision, in the direction, that grows. Now, how has the life of the average citizen changed? I don't know how many of you pay income tax in India. But today, when you file your income tax return, within a matter of days, maybe for some complicated cases, maybe weeks, you actually get on your phone that your income tax return is okay, it has been accepted, and very often, of course, you will get your refund if it is due. Now, I'm giving you income tax because remember the period when filing income tax, you would get a headache. Or I will give you one which pertains to my own ministry, passports. That people would take weeks, months, sometimes years to get passports. Sometimes not get a reply at all after filing application. Now, today if somebody doesn't get passport within 1 week or 2 weeks, they send they put it on Twitter, and I have to tell them, nay, don't worry, your case is being looked at. Now, how has that happened? It has partly happened because we have embraced technology as a people. That when I look around the world, from a country which used to think technology, other people had it. Today, actually in the use of technology, we have gone far, far ahead. That our income tax, I've seen people in my family file income tax in other countries. I think my return today is dealt with faster probably than anywhere else in the world. My passport comes through faster anywhere else in the world. But it isn't, you could say, okay, you are living in a city, maybe your income level is higher. You should actually see what has happened to the average person. Average person even in the most remote areas. I am a member of parliament from Gujarat. And the district, I don't know how many people are from Gujarat here. Okay, good, thank you. Kemcho. Now, I want to say, the district which I pay, as an MP, I have to put, my community fund into that, is a district called Narmada. Okay. It's not a developed district, it's what is called aspirational district. Today, if you go to the most remote area of that district, you can actually see that how much digital, Aadhaar, JAM, SIM card, bank account, telephone number, all these, how have they changed the lives of the people? That people get their, today, rations without chori. People who take loans or get payments get it without a cut. People who are eligible for health treatment don't have to, they can go and show that they are eligible for that health treatment. You don't have to go through somebody. People who are supposed to get houses from the government get it. So, in a very, very sweeping way today, the life of the average citizen in every way has become easier. And it is actually because we in India today have embraced technology in a very, very deep way. And you can see that most of all in payments, that, how many today, very few people today actually pay in cash. Very few people pay, very few people accept cash. In fact, you give a big note, you will not get back your change anymore. So, it is better to pay with your phone. And if you look at these cashless payments today, in India, our payment, we do as many cashless payments in India in a month which America does in 3 years. That is actually how deep today the technology has been. Now, I'm talking of average citizen, but look even at the perception of the world. In the last year, I would say if there is one thing which we have done, which has got everybody's attention, and it so happened I was actually abroad at that time with the Prime Minister. This was the landing of the Chandrayaan. That When, when people saw not just what we did, at what cost we did, and we took the most difficult part of that landing. So we landed the module in a place where it was particularly challenging to do. Now, for the rest of the world, when they think today about talent, when they think about what India is capable of, I mean, even today, before I came to meet all of you, I was at this Nigerian Institute of International Affairs. And the gentleman who was a former foreign minister who was talking, who was introducing me, first thing he spoke about, that for him today, today's India for him was the landing of the Chandrayaan. This is actually the image. So there is a lot which is happening in the country, but the world also sees how a country behaves outside. Now, I mentioned to you that, during COVID, we produced a lot of vaccines. We gave vaccines to almost 100 countries. Not just vaccines, we gave medicines also. But the world sees today a globalized India. There are people like you everywhere in the world. I'm sure there is no city in India, in the world today. I will not find a community. I will find a community which is held in very high standing, which is respected locally, which is seen as a major contributor, through whom actually, I always tell people, when you go abroad and people say India, they're not thinking of the map of India. They are thinking of a face of India. They're thinking of an Indian with whom they work, an Indian who's their friend. So, for every good feeling about India and the world, actually, some Indian is actually created that. Now, when our community is spread across the world, I think with that also comes a responsibility. And one of the big changes in this, when people tell me, okay, you are now into your 5th decade in foreign policy, tell me a few changes of this decade. I think how India, the government of India, the people of India connect, not just of messaging, not just of, of saying this, but of demonstrating it most of all at times of difficulty. When, again, I go back to COVID, you will all be surprised how many countries left their citizens to their own fate during COVID. That sorry, aapke naseeb mein hai, you are outside the country, there's nothing we can do. Now, during the COVID, the Prime Minister ensured that we brought back 70 lakh people, 7 million people through Vande Bharat. Now, you'll say, okay, COVID happens once in 100 years, okay, next 100 years you don't have to do anything. But the world is actually a very difficult place. Somewhere in some part of the world, some problem is always happening. So it isn't just COVID. We saw, how so unexpectedly this conflict happened in Ukraine. And, there were a lot of young people who had gone there to study, who were trapped in that conflict. Now we saw much more recently, the civil war which happened in Sudan. Again, there were many people who had gone there to work, and they were spread out all over Sudan. I mean, you can imagine how big a country it is. So they were not even in a few places, at least, in Ukraine, the students were in universities and dormitories. These were people who were spread across the entire country. When in October, this attack happened in Israel, Again, we had a lot of people who were very worried about their future. So today, how a country looks after its people is a very important aspect of how that country is seen. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It can be little things. It can be a lost passport. How we look after you when you lose your passport. It can be somebody who's going to a new country, doesn't know anybody, wants some basic information about that country. Is this company good? Is this not good? Is that hotel good? Is that not good? How do we have a helpful attitude to it? It can be somebody who's a worker, who doesn't have money, they have been lost their job or had some misfortune. How do you create a fund to look after people who are abroad, who do not have that ability to look after themselves? So we have today, in this 10 years, actually put in place an enormous system. A system where people in trouble have a way of telling us, it can be digital, it can be social media, it can be physical, it can be telephone call. And there is a system to look after it, because any good country should not be relying on, this is a good ambassador or that is a good minister, or it should be whoever comes and goes, there must be a system in place. So I thought I would share these ideas with you, because to me today, how a country deals with its challenge, how a country recovers from that challenge and is able to today post such a strong economic performance, how the life of an average citizen becomes better, how we are capable of something which captures the imagination of the world, and how do we look after our people outside our country. These to me are 5 good examples, 5 big examples, 5 very true examples of what has changed in India in the last decade. And I just want to say again, I'd be happy, some of you would have some questions or comments. But I say this very, very sincerely to you, that when in pursuit of my responsibility, when I travel abroad, when I deal with counterpart foreign ministers and foreign governments, a great source of support for me everywhere in the world has been the Indian community. So I want to take this opportunity to personally thank you all. You have not just taken the time to come, but you have given me an opportunity to be the first Indian foreign minister to thank the Indian community in Lagos, to respond to any questions or comments.
Thank you, Mr. Minister, sir, for gracing us with your thought-provoking and inspiring words on Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas and its profound impact on every Indian in this interconnected global landscape. On this note, we transition into the interactive segment. It is worth noting that we received an overwhelming. We would now request those who have questions to kindly on Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas and its profound impact on every Indian in this interconnected global landscape. On this note, we transition into the interactive segment. It is worth noting that we received an overwhelming. We would now request those who have questions to kindly raise Bhanawat and Rakesh Agarwal. So these 3 are with the mics. Yeah, Mr. Mehta. Yeah. Yeah, maybe you can ask the question, please.
Good evening, sir, once again. My question is related to ties between India and Nigeria. In the spirit of fostering stronger ties between India and Nigeria, we are keenly interested in learning about the novel initiatives and collaborations that have been initiated, particularly those that have direct and a positive impact on the Indian diaspora living outside India and particularly West Africa. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Next question, please, because we will take 3 questions in the first round. Yeah, Mr. Kailash. Yeah.
Good evening, sir. Welcome to Nigeria. My question is, reflecting on India's foreign policy evolution, is it evident that distinct era exists pre-2014 and post-2014? From your extensive experience, could you highlight key differences between these two periods? Thank you.
Yeah, Anuj.
Sure.
Hello. Yeah. A very good evening, sir. So you just mentioned about technology and especially the online payment system. And we all agree and we all know it's the best. And India has made a tremendous growth and perhaps we are #1 in the world. So I would like to know how is Nigeria adopting to it and what would be the Indian stake in the progress of Nigeria when it comes to this online payment and gateway systems, sir? Thank you.
Okay. Let me respond to these 3 questions, yes, then I can take another round.
Sure, sir.
And I noted what you said about the strong turnout. So I want to say I will be taking a picture from here, which I will show to all the other ministers in India. And I'm sure it will enthuse them to come in greater numbers. But the India-Nigeria cooperation, you know, right now we do about $12 to $15 billion worth of business, roughly half our exports, half. There are many more possibilities because actually Indian capabilities in many areas are growing in very, very strongly. I would say, for example, we've had a long record in pharmaceuticals. But today India, for example, has become a big producer of medical devices, which was not the case earlier. There would be like this, I can pretty much in any area give you examples of things India is making today which it was not making 5 years ago or 10 years ago. Not just making it, but actually making it very, very competitively. And the result of that, if you see, our export figures are actually every year going up at a time when the global economy is actually struggling. So I feel most of all that, see, the backbone of any relationship is economic, is business, from our experiences. We see today Indian universities make big advances in education. Indian hospitals are growing. There are on the digital side, I spoke about this whole digital infrastructure that we have built up. So even drones. So there are, I would say, even to our Nigerian partners, my request to them would be, please come to India. Please see the changes in India, because in their minds. But I would certainly encourage all of you in different ways. I tell the community whenever I'm there that Prime Minister Modi always is with you next time you go to India. Encourage them to go to India. By doing that, you will actually make a very, very big difference to the relationship. The question, what has changed? The underpinning it, the self-confidence and I would say a sense of, we joined about 5 years ago a group called the Quad. So this is India, America, Japan, Australia. The same thing was attempted 10 years before that. But then somebody got a little bit angry. So everybody got backed off. Okay? So that time we couldn't stand up to that pressure, because you all know where that pressure came from. This time there was a willingness to stand up to that pressure. Similarly, you saw, when the whole Ukraine problem started, how much pressure we came under. that the same European countries, the same Western countries who are themselves making that arrangement were telling us, no, no, you will not go and buy oil from Russia. So one part of it is today this very clear sense, look, this is India's interest. Okay, sometimes other countries may have a problem. Frankly, if it is a problem, it is their problem. You know, we are not going to sacrifice our interest because somebody else is uncomfortable with it. But that's one set of examples. A very different set of examples I give you. You know, look in the last 10 years, how much yoga has spread through the world and how much of a difference it has made to our image. Or look even at, you know, during COVID, even after COVID, traditional medicine. Or you know, recently one big campaign we have launched is for millets, you know, mota anaj, sriyan. And you know, Africa is particularly relevant to it because people here historically still eat millets. So if we are today sending a message to the world that this is also an India which is proud of its traditions, of its culture, of its history. That is also a message we are sending. And that is also something which the world, Indians, say, for example, need a place. And the third one, the financial one. You know, we are trying to do two things, mechanism. The other is actually using rupees, because one of the big problems which today business is having. There are many countries today who are actually finding it difficult to get dollars, and therefore, because they don't have dollars, they don't have the ability to do trade and settle the transactions. So again, you know, in a way, to all of this, you know, three questions. I think once that kind of Atmanirbhar thinking starts to take root, you know, there's this big debate going on in India today. Actually, it's less of a debate. Only a few people are questioning about Bharat. Huh? So, what is the message of Bharat? You know, the message of Bharat is, look, we are a, you know, I don't know, 5,000 year civilization, maybe longer. We have history, we have things we are proud of. We have a sense of what we are. So in this journey of life, you have to keep, if you don't know what you are, you don't know where you are going. So that sense today in India, that we are, in the world today, there are very few civilizations that have survived today as a modern nation state. And we are one of them. So I think it is something we need really to contribute to the world.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. Can we have the next round of 3 questions, please?
Hello. Sorry. Namaste. So my question is my name is Bharat, and my question is, whatever is happening is a positive and good part of, we all know, but one of the consistent issue what we see is about brain drain, and it's a consistent issue since long of the history. My thought process about is India or the foreign policies are thinking about getting into dual citizenship to have a, stop, which is still, we all are brain drain over here. That's the reality. Thank you, sir.
I think the question was more about dual citizenship.
Hello. Good evening, sir. My question is, what is the biggest challenge that you have encountered as Minister of External Affairs that you have been able to successfully resolve? Thank you.
Yeah, the smartest Sardarji in town.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good evening, sir. Our Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Bhai Modi, had set the audacious plan for the Amrit Kal in 2047. So I would like to know what is the plan, what are the challenges you feel we will encounter, and what are your own thoughts on it? Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Can you give the mic to the lady there?
The lady in the sari, yeah.
Thank you so much. Good evening, all esteemed dignitaries. Namaskar to everybody. And Vanakkam, sir. Thank you. I have recently moved to Nigeria just 2 years ago, so I'm a recent, what do you say, expat.
Sorry, you are not very audible.
Okay, am I audible better now? Okay, thank you so much. So when I was in India, I was a young professional with the Niti Aayog. And I used to handle the media cell for Shri Amitabh Kant, sir. And I had the good fortune of also working with the Prime Minister's office. And since I'm a media person, basically, I mostly observe the things that go around, how India is being represented in the media, and especially when it comes to digital media, sir. And when we talk about social media particularly, I feel that the current social media handles of the embassy in Nigeria acts mostly like an information center. And like how you suggested that we should have a conversation, this is more of like a suggestion, sir, that there should be a way of engagement with the community rather than information flowing only one-sided, sir. And thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So, let me start with the gentleman there. I think that period when we spoke about brain drain, we worried about brain drain, it doesn't fit with the world that we see around us. Why? Because this world today is actually in many ways a global marketplace, a global business place, a global workplace. So I'll give you some examples. Some time ago, just a few months ago, the head of Muller-Maersk, the shipping company, he had come to India. And he told me that the largest nationality which Muller-Maersk, which is one of the premier shipping lines of the world, the largest nationality that he employs are Indians. So, why am I giving you this example? Because to me, a country with the kind of demography we have, the capability we have, at a time when the world is so connected with each other, to think that everybody should stay and work within our borders, we may actually not be serving our own interests. That there are many professions today where it is very useful for people to be mobile, to study, work, research, do business. Many of them do business. And again, see, in the 1960s and 70s, feeling was whoever left, left. Okay? That is also not true. But ask yourselves, how deep is your connection to India? That in so many ways, I can tell you, if there is one thing which is true, every time India has been in trouble, people outside, that you look at a lot of the technology which is happening, a lot of the innovations which are happening, it's also fueled by Indians who are outside. So I feel today that we should have the self-confidence not to restrict ourselves to India's boundaries. That we have today the capability, the relevance, the contribution to make across the world. And You know, if you look at many countries today, in very key professions, they don't have people. So this is an opportunity for us. And I feel today that in different areas, actually, the Indians who, that's why we use this word living bridge, that they will connect us to the world in a way in which no amount of diplomacy and government agreements can ever do. So on this, I actually have a very sort of open view.